Hey everyone, and welcome. In patch 9.9, the scuttle was changed from their initial spawn at 2 minutes to 3 minutes and 15 seconds. This has completely shaken up the jungle meta. In this video, you're going to learn everything needed to carry and win in the new jungle. We'll be breaking down what junglers became weaker and what junglers became stronger, giving you specific recommendations for the best picks for each jungle playstyle. You'll learn how early vision has changed dramatically and the specific time and locations you should be placing your wards. And most excitingly, you'll be armed with the new most powerful routes for each different jungle archetype, a total of 8 new paths. It doesn't matter what jungler you play, you'll know their best route by the end of this video. The information in this video has been painstakingly cross-referenced across hundreds of different challenger games in each major region. This has been done to guarantee that what you're about to learn is the most accurate and up-to-date information. Alright, let's get started with a meta rundown. In the previous meta, when the scuttle spawned at 2 minutes, it gave rise to strong level 2 junglers that could fight over them. These are champions like Xin Zhao, Jarvan, Pantheon, and Kindred. The reason for this was that it isn't possible for a jungler to hit level 3 before this 2-minute mark. This indirectly weakened any jungler that needed level 3 to unlock their full potential. But now, that's no longer the case, since the scuttles spawn at the 3-minute and 15-second mark. This has indirectly nerfed level 2 aggro junglers, causing them to decline in win rate, while also seeing a rise in the win rate of level 3 junglers. For example, Jarvan was considered a top tier pick before the scuttle changes, with his win rate averaging at around 53%. However, after the patch hit, we can see it's declining to below 50%, a massive drop. Yes, this was affected by some of the smaller nerfs he received on that patch, but we can see a similar downwards trend on the win rates of both Xin Zhao and Pantheon. Let's compare this to a champion like Elise. Elise was never considered that strong on the previous patch due to her needing level 3 to compete with the strong level 2 junglers. If we look at her win rate history, we can see it was averaging at around 50.5%. However, after the scuttle changes, her win rate spikes up, averaging an entire percent higher. So what does this mean? Early aggressive level 2 junglers like Jarvan, Xin Zhao, Pantheon, and Kindred have been indirectly nerfed from the scuttle changes, while junglers that become stronger at level 3, like Elise, Kha'Zix, and Evelynn, have been indirectly buffed. This is only one part of the picture though. With level 2 aggro junglers declining, it's then created an opportunity for farming junglers. With less ganking and forced confrontations over the scuttles so early, these farming orientated junglers can literally clear their entire jungle before a scuttle spawns. These are champions like Karthus, Kayn, and Master Yi. So overall, aggro junglers are declining in power, while level 3 and farming junglers are increasing. To help you keep track of the meta, we've created a list of the strongest jungle champions on the current patch for each playstyle. For farming junglers, Karthus and Kayn stand out well beyond the rest, with Master Yi close behind. For assassins, Kha'Zix and Evelynn are at the top of the pack, but be on the lookout for Rengar, as he's only a tier below them and his ultimate counters their stealth, while his W ability counters their burst, making him a good counterpick. For tanks, Nunu, Sejuani, Rammus, and Amumu, yes that's right, Amumu, are top tier. Amumu received buffs on 9.9 that shot up his win rate. He's also a bit more versatile as he can build AP instead of tank when needed. For aggressive junglers, Jarvan, Lee Sin, and Elise are your best bet, but none of them really stand out as being overpowered right now. And finally, there's Hecarim, who's in his own category because despite being nerfed on patch 9.9, he's still overpowered and complete freelo. Alright, now that you have a handle on the meta, let's move on to how early vision has drastically changed. If any of you have been keeping up with our jungle videos, which you should because they're awesome, you'll know that we've hammered into your heads how important it is to get wards in the pixel brushes early on. This was necessary due to needing vision of the enemy jungler if he goes for an early scuttle. This helped predict his path. This is no longer the case, since the scuttles don't spawn until the 3-minute and 15-second mark. That means it's no longer necessary to ward these pixel brushes. Instead, you want to get a ward on the enemy's raptors. Here's why. Let's say an enemy starts at their red buff, which is the most popular buff to start at. With a ward on their raptors, you'll see whether they do their raptors after their red, or if they skip them to immediately go to their blue. On top of this, if the enemy doesn't appear, it means they went to do their Krugs. This early ward pretty much guarantees that you'll know exactly what route the enemy is taking if they start at their red. Even if they start at their blue, you'll be able to see how fast they rotated to their red, and be able to hit tab when you do see them to check their CS. Since each camp is worth 4 CS, we'll be able to figure out what camps they've cleared in their blue side jungle, once again getting knowledge on their route. This ward on the Raptor camp is something you'll see in every single Korean Challenger game, and I can promise you, if you start using it, you'll get a massive edge on opponents who don't. Alright, now let's move on to what I'm sure many of you have been waiting for, the new routes for the current meta. To begin, let's start with routes for farming junglers, as they're the simplest and easiest to understand. When starting at your blue, you want to do blue, Gromp, wolves, raptors, red, and then Krugs, full clearing your jungle. This really should be renamed the Karthus route, as he's by far the most effective at it. For example, if we look at a replay of professional Korean jungler Griffin Tarzan, we can see him take blue, Gromp, wolves, raptors, red, and then Krugs. After Krugs, he still has enough time left to threaten a gank top before the nearby scuttle spawns, into then killing it. That's insanely efficient. This route is used on champions that can farm extremely fast, but consume a lot of mana. These are champions like Karthus and Olaf. To highlight just how strong this route is on Karthus, let's compare its speed to a Hecarim doing the same route. Hecarim also has fast clear speed and consumes a lot of mana, but by the time Hecarim has finished his Gromp, Karthus is already starting his Raptors. And by the time Hecarim is on his Raptors, Karthus has finished his red and is moving to his Krugs. Karthus really is on a whole other level when it comes to using this route, and you can see why only the fastest clearing junglers that are mana hungry want to use it. Now, for champions that farm fast but don't have mana issues, it's preferable to start at your red buff. This is because you can kill your Krugs at the start of your route instead of at the end. This causes them to respawn earlier. This is valuable as the Krug camp gives the most experience of any camp. This gives you a bigger boost of experience early in your next rotation. There are two main farming routes high-level players are using when starting at red. The first is doing red, Krugs, Raptors, wolves, blue, into then going for the nearby scuttle. To learn the benefits of this route, let's look at a replay of Korean professional jungler KZ Cuz. By doing red into Krugs, he gets that fast early respawn of his Krugs. Think of it like an investment for later. However, the other benefit is that you get to hit level 3 off of 3 camps instead of the usual 4, specifically after you do Raptors, letting you transition to your blue side jungle with a level 3 spike. The other farming route when starting red involves getting a Leashless Opener. Only a few champions can do this, the most popular being Kayn and Hecarim. Here's Damwon Gaming's jungler Canyon using the route. You start at your Raptors, do red, Krugs, and then recall. You purchase a Hunter's Machete, and then take your wolves into your blue. At this point, you can decide to go immediately to take the nearby scuttle that's about to spawn, or take the Gromp to be more efficient. In this case, Canyon noticed Jay's show early when he started his Raptors, indicating that the enemy Aatrox was getting a leash at his red. Since junglers are now pathing towards the opposite direction they started, he knew that by the time he got to his blue, there was no rush to take the nearby scuttle as soon as it spawned, since Aatrox would be on the top side of the map. This is why he chose to do the Gromp to be slightly more efficient. We'll be touching more on this concept later on in this video. The main benefit of Leashless Openers is that you don't force one of your side lanes to arrive late, which often causes them to lose control of the lane early. However, as mentioned, only a select few champions can do it, which is why it's not more popular. Now these farming routes are starting to look really strong, so what are their weaknesses? The main weakness is that it forces you to commit to the scuttle on the opposite side that you start on. This means you need to be confident that you'll have lane priority on that side of the map, or that the enemy's route will put them on the opposite side of the scuttle you're going for. Either way, you need to secure that scuttle. If you're not able to get the scuttle, you risk being double scuttled by the enemy, since he can simply take the scuttle, then transition to the other one before you can get to that side of the map in time. It also delays your first gank, since you're committing to clearing camps first before you move on to the map. Overall, the efficiency comes at the expense of flexibility. This is why it's best used on more farming-orientated junglers that have weaker ganks early on. It's also important to note that these farming routes are mainly used on junglers that take Hunter's Talisman, as you'll need the AoE damage and healing from its passive to take down the Raptor camp. Now we understand the current meta routes for farming junglers, but before we go to the other extreme and look at the aggressive paths, let's take a look at the routes for junglers that fall in the middle, that are a bit more well-rounded. Think of champions like Elise or Rek'Sai. Both can be strong once they're level 3, but not exactly the champions you want to power farm into the late game with. When starting at your blue, you want to do blue, Gromp, Wolves, and then red. This lets you hit level 3 off of 4 camps, while giving you some extra time to work with before the scuttles spawn. With this extra time, you can try ganking a lane to assert lane priority for the upcoming scuttle, which is a concept we taught in a recent guide titled How to Play Around Scuttle Crabs. Check it out if you want to learn that tactic in more detail. You can start transitioning to the other scuttle if you feel it's not possible to contest the one close by. Or you can choose to farm an additional camp while waiting for the nearby scuttle to spawn. In this Korean Challenger replay, we see the Elise has finished her red. She notices that her bot lane doesn't really have lane priority to help secure the scuttle. As such, she hovers around the lane to threaten a gank, which causes the enemy bot lane to back off, securing her lane priority to go for the scuttle. As you can start to see, the main benefit of this route is its versatility. Now, there are two main variations of this route when it comes to starting at red, one where you take raptors and another when you skip them. It all depends on whether your champion can take the raptor camp. For example, in this replay from SKT T1 Clid, he's playing a champion that can do raptors, Elise. When this is the case, the route is red, raptors, blue, and then Gromp. Again, you're now level 3 with extra time to gank lanes before the scuttles spawn, take another camp while you wait for it to spawn, or rotate to the other scuttle. If your champion can't do raptors, then the route is red, wolves, blue, then Gromp. Again, you'll be level 3 with extra time to use before the scuttles spawn. The main strength of this route compared to the farming routes is that it lets you hit your gank a bit earlier while keeping you more flexible and versatile. The main weakness is that you don't get that initial clear of your Krugs, so if you don't make something happen with your early ganks, you'll have lost out on some experience and gold compared to the farming routes. Now I'm sure many of you are starting to notice how none of these routes are covering vertical jungling. For those of you who don't know, vertical jungling is when both junglers start red and then invade each other's blue buffs. This splits the map in half vertically, where one jungler gets control of the top side while the other gets control of the bot side. With scuttles no longer spawning at 2 minutes, it significantly reduced the frequency of vertical jungling. As such, you now typically want to start on the opposite side of the map you want to influence. For example, if you decide that top lane is a volatile matchup of Darius into Renekton and want to gank it early, you have to start on the bot side of the map and then path towards top side. This is the opposite of the previous meta, where we often wanted to start on the same side as the lane we wanted to influence due to the constant likelihood of vertical jungling to occur combined with the popularity of level 2 aggro junglers. Alright, let's move on to the aggressive routes. These have been nerfed due to the scuttle spawns being pushed to the 3 minute and 15-second mark. That being said, they're still viable, just less powerful. These routes are what you want to use on the strong early game junglers like Xin Zhao, Kindred, and Pantheon. Now every single aggressive route in the current meta involves you starting at your red, as the buff will make your auto attacks do more damage while also giving them a slow. There are currently two main variations. The first is doing red into a gank top, into then invading the enemy's blue. The idea is that the gank top can not only net you an early kill, but also secures you lane priority, giving you support on your invade on their blue. There are two requirements to execute this route. Start a sweeping lens, and make sure the enemy started at their red on the opposite side of the map. This is because if the enemy started at their blue, you won't be able to steal it after you gank top, since they would have already taken it. For example, in this replay, we see Sandbox on fleek starting red as Xin Zhao and then immediately pathing top. He uses his sweeping lens to check if it's warded, which unfortunately it is, into then killing the ward. The enemy Jace now has to play back since he doesn't know whether Xin Zhao is waiting to gank him. This gives his top lane the priority needed to invade the enemy's blue. This was also a really smart path by Xin Zhao. since Jace can be a huge lane bully. If he had passed towards the bottom side of the map, Nidalee would have ended up pressuring topside and Poppy would have gotten crushed. Now the other variation to this route is used on champions that jump over the Baron pit at level 2 after taking their red, into then stealing the enemy's blue buff. These are champions like Kindred, Jarvan, Graves, Nidalee, and Camille. The idea is that by jumping over the Baron pit, you hide yourself from any wards that would spot you. You then place a ward that spots the Blast Cone plant and the choke point to their blue. After blue, you can take their Gromp. In the meantime, you watch your ward to see if you spot the enemy going for their blue. If the enemy goes for their blue, since you picked a strong level 2 jungler and have the element of surprise, you can win the 1v1. Otherwise, if you don't spot them, you move to their wolf camp next, where often you'll catch them there. Alright, we went over a lot in this replay, so let's briefly recap. We started by giving you a rundown of the meta, where you learned that Scuttle spawning later indirectly nerfed aggressive junglers while buffing level 3 and farming junglers. We then covered how early warding has changed. We no longer ward the pixel brushes and instead place a ward on the enemy's raptor camp to help track their route. We then broke down the new most powerful routes for each jungling playstyle. For farming junglers, when starting blue, you full clear into your Krugs. When starting red, you can do red into full clearing towards your blue, or if you can start raptors, you can do a Leashless Opener where you kill raptors, red, Krugs, then recall into your blue side jungle. These routes are strongest on champions that can clear fast and have weak early ganks. Next, we looked at routes for junglers that fall in the middle and are more well-rounded. If you start blue, you do blue, Gromp, wolves, and then red. When starting red, you can do red, raptors, blue into Gromp, or if your champion can't do raptors, then it's red, wolves, blue into Gromp. The goal of these routes is to hit level 3 off of 4 camps with double buffs, while having extra time to spare before the scuttles spawn. This lets you land a gank before going for the scuttle, take another camp, or transition to the opposite scuttle if needed. This keeps you versatile and flexible, while maintaining a nice balance of aggression and farming. Lastly, we covered routes for aggressive junglers. The first is doing red into ganking the nearby side lane into stealing the enemy's blue. It's important that you start a sweeping lens when executing this route, since you want to use it as you move to gank top. This allows you to apply early pressure to a nearby lane while stealing the enemy's blue. The other route is used on champions that can jump over the Baron pit wall at level 2. You do red, jump over the wall, and steal the enemy's blue. This allows you to avoid being spotted in any wards. You then place a ward of your own to see if the enemy comes to take their blue. This sets a trap as you farm their jungle, since you have the element of surprise, double buffs, and are playing a strong level 2 jungler. Alright, what do you think of the Scuttle changes? Has it made the game better or worse? Let us know in the comment section below, as well as any questions you might have. Make sure to like, subscribe, and hit the bell icon to increase your elo and keep up to date with the meta. In the meantime, check out some of our other guides, which I know you'll love. As always, good luck and have fun on Summoner's Rift.